when I got to the Haste Blocks, after coming out of the cages of Long-Cash, I found it a totally different situation. In the cages of Long-Cash, we had a POW situation where we had our own command structure, we had freedom of association, and we done basically what we wanted, as normal as can be in a POW camp. Arriving at the Haste Blocks, I found a totally organised situation, spotless clean, the screws in total control, the prisoners locked up 24 hours a day.
The Maze prison was unlike any other in the United Kingdom. Nowhere else did Britain accommodate men committed to extreme violence, including mass murder, in the name of their cause. In September 1976, Kieran Nugent became the first Republican to reject the policy of criminalisation. The blanket protest had begun. Now the IRA had to find a way of engaging public sympathy.
By the time I got there, no one was taking visits, and I was soon asked to take command of the Haste Blocks. And I asked anyone that wanted to take a visit to take visits, to get a line of communication out, to build up the propaganda on the outside, because no one on the outside knew what was going on. These guys have been locked up for nearly 2 years, and no one knew the conditions that they were under. So a communication system was necessary to get word to the outside. By pure chance, I happened to be beside Bobby Sands all the time, and Bobby was a great propagandist. And so we got this line of communication going.
Bobby Sands used his writing skills on secretly smuggled comms, letters written on cigarette paper or toilet tissue, to provide stories from inside the maze for unpublished Republican news. He used his sister's name Marcella as a pseudonym. Sands' stories for the Republican news chronicled the blanket protest and the escalation to the dirty protest in 1978.
When a prisoner, if he's been treated unjustly and unfairly, he can only protest by using the conditions of his confinement and against the people who are treating him unjustly. And that's what the prisoners did.
The excreta was getting put in the corner. The maggots, whatever excess food was left over from the food getting put into the cell, led to a rotten load of stuff in the corner which bred maggots. They brought this heavy disinfectant and poured disinfectant in through the doors, which was like CS gas, which led to us breaking the windows to get some air in. They then blocked the windows up, and that's when we decided to put the excreta on the wall.
Without clothing, Republicans felt vulnerable and accused prison staff of taking advantage of this to further humiliate them as they were moved around the prison, particularly when they were forced to squat naked over a mirror during body searches. By 1980, the prisoners and the prison staff had been enduring the effects of the dirty protest for 2 years. Even though conditions in the maze had been condemned by human rights organisations, 4 years of Republican protest had so far failed to draw any concessions from the British.
Pure lack of response from responsible people outside that forced the prisoners to use their conditions and to use their bodies, etc., to make the protest. Now, I didn't agree with them doing it, but I could see that to the extent we, the public outside, had let them down and forced them to do this. And of course, it's understandable because provers outside were murdering people, and actually it was a risky enough thing for people to stand up and make a comment in favour of the prisoners and their families.
The lack of progress was sapping morale down on the wings.
The blanket protest was an intensive form of protest in itself. When that appeared to be failing, and that was failing after the intervention of Roman Catholic Cardinal O'Fee and the Roman Catholic Bishop of Derry, who had made fairly strenuous efforts to come to find a settlement, their efforts had been rejected. We decided at that stage that our options were running out to come to a settlement, to reach a settlement. Moreover, we did detect at the time that morale was flagging among Republican prisoners, not disappearing, but somewhat flagging, and the decision was taken that we had to make a serious effort to break the impasse, and therefore we opted for what's effectively the weapon of last resort of any prisoner, the hunger strike.
It was a battle fought over a prison issue which had wider ramifications. The battle was fought over the question of legitimacy. Were the Republican prisoners, as they presented it, political prisoners, or were they, as the British government presented it, criminals who were imprisoned for crimes? And that battle over legitimacy, while its sharpest edges were inside the jail, obviously had implications for the IRA's campaign outside the jails and also for the nature of the Northern Ireland problem as a whole.
Whatever the wider context of the prison protest, the rationale for the hunger strike was articulated in the 5 demands set out by Republican prisoners. They wanted to wear their own clothing, to refrain from prison work, free association with other prisoners, to organise recreation and leisure activity, and the restoration of remission lost during the blanket protest. However, the IRA leadership on the outside rejected 2 further demands the prisoners had wanted to include, for legal reforms to the system of non-jury trials, diplock courts, and to the rules of evidence.
You lose the fat first, the fat goes, and whatever excess fat you have, it starts to go. Then your muscles start to go. Your mind eats off the muscle, the glucose in the muscle. And you can feel yourself going, you can actually smell yourself rotting away or dying away. And that was one of the most memorable things for me, the smell of almost death.
This is coming from your own body?
From your own body, yeah. Remember this, we had long beards, right, and long hair. We hadn't shaved in years. We hadn't cut our hair in years. We hadn't washed in years. And then your body starts to deteriorate. Your body starts to eat itself. And that's basically what happens during hunger strike. Until the point where when there's no fat left, there's no muscles left, your body starts to eat off your brain. And that's when your senses start to go, your eyesight goes, your hearing goes, all their senses start to go when the body starts to eat off the brain.
What I remember most clearly was the pain and the agony, and in some ways a strange thing that I used to think that death wouldn't be so awful if it wasn't so painful. I suppose it's the old one that we don't mind, it's dying that's worse than death. I kept thinking to myself, if I could just become comfortable. But it was impossible to become comfortable. And it's obviously, it's a strange thought looking back on it now, but that in some ways was one of the things that preoccupied me. Not any lofty political thoughts or philosophical thoughts. The agony and the pain and the sickness really were the primary concerns that I had at the time in those last days.
In the prison hospital, the hunger strikers were placed on sheepskin rugs to protect them from the pain of exposed bones, and medical staff turned them every 2 hours to avoid bed sores.
What kept me going was that I had tobacco smuggled in with me, and I had a small flint and a wheel of a disposable lighter, which I used to carry in my nose up here. There's a small space up there. And every night I used to get down on my knees and roll one of these cigarettes, and sometimes it took me 2 hours. The longer it was done, the weaker I got, the longer it took me. And then, but I mean, it was something for me to do. I was still beating the system by doing this.
But in the end, it was the system that beat Brendan Hughes and the other prisoners. They couldn't see the full picture as news of a settlement filtered through based on secret talks that had been going on with Britain. Brendan Hughes couldn't wait for a copy of the settlement document coming from London or the chance to consult the outside leadership. Sean McKenna would be dead by then. So to save his colleague, Hughes called off the hunger strike. It was December the 18th, day 53.
The so-called civilian clothes we were getting turned out to be prison issue civilian clothes. So the whole betrayal began to take place. And well, we had to resort back to sending me notes to tell me that the whole thing was being sabotaged. He didn't know whether it was the prison establishment that was sabotaging it, or the British government, or the NIO, or who the hell was sabotaging it. But the deal was getting sabotaged. He then informed me that they were planning another hunger strike. That was shattering for all of us. That here we go again, back on the merry-go-round.
Bobby Sands began his hunger strike on March the 1st. 4 days later, fate dealt the Republican movement an unexpected opportunity to capitalise on their propaganda. The death of Fermanagh South Tyrone MP Frank Maguire allowed Sinn Féin to put Sands forward as a candidate. The H-Block campaign had awakened interest in sections of the Catholic community usually challenged by the morality of the armed struggle. On April 9th, 1980, Bobby Sands polled over 30,000 votes and was elected MP for Fermanagh South Tyrone with a majority of 1,446.
Anti-H block, Fermanagh, political prisoner, 30,000. Yeah!
Violence on the streets outside continued as the hunger strike moved inexorably towards its deadly conclusion.
When the Pope wished to send someone to see them, to beg them to give up, we gave every facility. Oh no, it is the hunger strikers and those who are coercing them. It is they who have been inflexible and intransigent. It is they who have said, you will starve unto death.
By now others had joined Bobby Sands MP on hunger strike, and there was no shortage of volunteers. Bobby Sands MP was the first of 10 men to die, and he attracted international media coverage. Streets and avenues were named after him in several socialist republics. With an estimated 100,000 at his funeral, Bobby Sands had become an enormous propaganda success for the IRA.
men queuing up literally to join the strike. You know, they were filled with this sense of sacrifice. You know, the old 1916 thing came up in them, and there would have been no bother putting on another 20 on the hunger strike. In the event, as you know, 10 did die, but there would have no bother putting on 20 more. They were simply, Bobby Sands, it was inspiration, and inspirational leadership. The British should have been able to recognise that.
3 more hunger strikers died before the end of May. Francis Hughes on the 12th, Raymond McCreesh died on the 21st, as did Patsy O'Hara, the first of 3 INLA men to die. In the same period, 21 people died on the streets.
We can, of course, maintain and improve an already humane prison regime. But there's no point in pretending that this is what the Provisional IRA want. They have remained inflexible and intransigent in the face of all that we have done, because what they want is special treatment different from that received by other prisoners. They want their violence justified. It isn't, and it will not be.
The reality was that by now the IRA felt rejuvenated.
We've made the point repeatedly to the British government. They said, you think you're winning, but you're not winning. Go and look at the wakes. Go and look at the funerals. Look at all the young people queuing up to see these emaciated corpses. You're not winning, you're losing. Of course, they couldn't see that.
Republicans saw mass demonstrations at rallies and funerals as support not only for the resolution of the prison issue, but also, crucially, for the armed struggle itself. They were responding quickly to take advantage of their unexpected ballot box popularity. 9 prisoners were to stand in the Republic's general election. 4 of them were on hunger strike.
Charles Haughey, who was then in position of power, was not even prepared to withdraw the British ambassador, to withdraw the Irish ambassador from London, nor did he attempt to make the hunger strikes a political issue through the general election of June of 1981. That in many ways was quite a traumatic lesson for Northern Republicans to learn. A lot of Southern Republicans actually would have been quite aware of that, but it starkly illustrated one of the basic facts of life, that Northern Republicans, to an extent, were going to stand or fall alone.
For Charles Haughey, the bitter irony of the Republic's general election was that the success of 2 H-Block candidates, Kieran Doherty, who was later to die on hunger strike, and Paddy Agnew, contributed to his failure to retain power. As Fine Gael and Labour negotiated a coalition government, Mr Haughey was left to reflect that for the first time since the arms trial in 1970, the Northern Ireland issue had impinged on the consciousness of the Republic in a very tangible way. And just as in 1972, when the British Embassy in Dublin was burned down during disturbances over the Bloody Sunday shootings, the city witnessed a similar violent backlash to the hunger strike. The clock was ticking, more deaths seemed inevitable, and all the time attempts to end the fast brought false dawns of hope. TDs, MPs, priests, bishops, the Red Cross, foreign diplomats, and even the Pope had tried to provide the spark of initiative to broker a deal before the Irish Commission for Justice and Peace sent their delegation into the Maze prison as the 1981 marching season approached.
It was obviously a very, very difficult situation because we were talking on the one hand to Michael Allison, and he of course was a prisons minister. He would refer back to Humphrey Atkins, who in turn would refer back to Margaret Thatcher. So it was complicated on one side, and then when you added the second side, which also had its internal complications, because you had the hunger strikers within the prison, you had the IRA command structure within the prison, you had the IRA command structure outside the prison, and you had the Sinn Féin structure outside the prison. So within each of the sides there was a very complicated structure, and then when you tried to operate between the two, then it became even more complicated.
During a week of intense negotiations, the Commission's delegates slipped out of their West Belfast hotel for a secret meeting with Gerry Adams. They were about to make a startling discovery.
While we were discussing the different details of the 5 demands and so on with the British ministers, the British government from London were carrying on a parallel negotiation. And the strange thing was that they seemed to be offering more to Gerry Adams at that time than they were offering through our particular process. But it was clearly a very confused situation. And I don't know what the British government were doing.
The secret talks brought about a gesture of good faith from the British. They lifted the ban on Sinn Féin's publicity director to get him in to see the hunger strikers, at about the same time as the Commission was learning about the secret talks. The hunger strike death toll rose to 6 on July the 13th, when Martin Herson passed on. For Father Crilly, there was personal pain in watching the deaths continue. He wasn't present for the death of his cousin Francis Hughes, but another cousin, Tom Michael Wee, was waiting to die.
I had this feeling that in spite of all the discussions that were going on in the media about the morality of hunger strike and so on, I had this strange sense that Tom Michael Wee was ahead of me, both physically and morally, in a sense that he was so far ahead of me, prepared to give his life for something he believed in. And even though I disagreed with what he was doing, I found it very difficult to gain the ground, to find even the moral high ground, if you like, from which to speak directly to him and to make sense to him in the situation that he was in.
The question of morality was beginning to surface outside the prison. Before the next hunger striker died, the family of Paddy Quinn intervened on July the 31st to save his life after 47 days. The following day, Kevin Lynch died, and within the next 24 hours, Kieran Doherty TD passed away. By this stage, Father Fall was talking to relatives of the hunger strikers and challenging the Republican movement to morally justify going on with the protest when it meant certain death. Inside the maze, where he continued to take Mass, he frequently had heated exchanges with Brendan McFarlane. The protest was beginning to crumble by August the 8th, when Thomas Michael Wee became the 9th hunger striker to die, and Mickey Devine the 10th, 12 days later. On the day Devine died, the family of Patrick McGowan ended his fast after 42 days. That was also the day that Owen Carn took the Fermanagh South Tyrone seat with an increase in Bobby Sands' majority. For the next month, prisoners continued to join the hunger strike, while others were taken off by their families. With 10 men dead, the hunger strike as a weapon was running out of ammunition.
I put the question of several times. I said, are you interested in the fast or in death and big funerals? That became a vital question as we went on into August, as I was beginning to take them off one by one.
The hunger strike was called off. Republicans began to take stock. Had 10 men died in vain?
I would not do it again, because when I went on hunger strike, one, I was doing it to bring about better conditions for the people in the prison, and two, for a 32 County Democratic Socialist Republic, and so did the rest of the men. I don't see that there now. Whether they died in vain or not, I think history will tell. History will tell. But if there's such a thing as looking back from the dead, and if I had died, I would have said I died in vain, yes. If they're going to be using the hunger strikers as a tool to bring about a constitutional situation in Stormont, then I believe that is wrong. I don't believe hunger strikers should be used as a tool to bring about, or to help re-establish Stormont. I don't believe that is morally just or morally right. I think it's wrong that they should be doing that.